Initiate Project 2571.
This is the shelling sequence, which is very exciting. Of course, it's so iconic in sci-fi film history, and we campaigned long and hard that it could be done as a physical effect. And thankfully, Rupert's been supportive of the idea of doing as much of the movie physically as possible.
I hope it tells us a bit about, what's happened to her.
One of the things that we all really felt going into that was that we didn't really want completely CGI sequence, because I think that can have a coldness to it. And the other thing that we were very wary of was trying to not make it feel too much like a car being assembled in a factory. It needs to have a kind of spiritual sense to it.
Take all the musculature off and just do like a slow track.
The shelling sequence is an inspired conceptual idea of how you take the soul of one that may otherwise have lost their life and through their brainstem connect it with the mechanics of the machine.
Vitaly Bulgarov designed a full skeleton with musculature. I mean, it's a work of art. Weta then laser cut every piece of it and we reconstructed it, so everything you see in the shelling sequence is the real skeleton.
It's a beautiful concept and a terrific thing to try and realise as a physical entity.
It is probably the most elaborate prop Weta has ever undertaken. It's also probably one of the most expensive and, without a shadow of a doubt, the most involved prop we've ever worked on.
So this is the Major's skeleton. This is actually Scarlett's height, so that was one of the first things we did, was find out how tall Scarlett was and then scale the model to her height and size. So there was a little bit of creative license taken trying to match the approved design of the skeleton to Scarlett's body, so that from an anatomy point of view it had some sort of similarities. There are some liberties taken, as there always are in these sort of processes, but we got it pretty close.
You're not invulnerable. Maybe next time you can design me better.
The skeleton itself took about 5 months to build, and we approached this from a 3D modelling point of view.
When it comes to the 3D department, it's our job to turn the design into a pretty physical object, get them all nice, clean up, set with our 3D printers, we can get all solid.
Because we had such fantastic designs up front, we were able to go through and basically break this down into all its different components. I think there ended up being 1,400 individual pieces. They all need to mesh together and fit together perfectly, so by the time we actually get them off the printer, it really is an assembly job.
This is one of our 3D printers, and this job's been running 19.5 hours. This is the brain that's going to go in shelling sequence. We've made a whole skeleton out of 3D printed material. Every component's 3D printed in this machine. Underneath is the finished model. It just comes off, and then you're left with a beautifully printed piece underneath. And here, they're going to go and be water blasted and blast off the skeleton. Here you have a finished piece.
Now we're at a point where the 3D printing is caught up with our imagination.
You can see the challenge with the assembly charts. We've had to colour code it all just so that we don't lose a single part in the assembly. It's an incredibly complex thing to bring together.
Very good, man. Well done.
Wicked. Yeah, man. We're a win.
We had some really comprehensive storyboards to work off, and that basically set the map for all of the different puppets. So we went through the list first and identified everything that we needed to build and all the operations that the puppets needed to perform as well.
This is the ghost going into the shell. This is the brain going into the robot. Doesn't get more sci-fi than this.
Some of the shots we used a 1.5 scale animatronic head. Other shots we used the skeleton here where we could open the head flaps essentially and let the brain float in.
It would have been nice to get a real pumping human brain in there, but...
And action!
So then we pick up on the next phase of manufacturing for the Major's body, which is the ballistic gel layer here. This is basically another Vero Clear 3D print. Everything is completely 3D printed and it's got a slightly yellow tarnish over the top of it. All of this ballistic gel here clips over the top of the skeleton, so we can still see the Major's skeleton, muscle structure and everything through the ballistic gel. That shows up when we actually shot the shelling sequence. We hit it with very hot light so that we could see the skeleton inside. So as it passed the camera as a wipe, we could actually see the muscle still inside the ballistic gel layer, which was very cool. Obviously clipping shells around such fine things as fingers and thumbs was going to prove extremely difficult. The guys came up with a very creative way to get around the hands.
So to get the skeleton inside of the ballistic gel layer of the hand, rather than going through an extremely difficult model making process, this has been printed. I don't know if you can see in there, but this has been printed with the negative space of the skeleton printed into the ballistic gel, and then it's been back painted. So that's how we've got the illusion of the skeleton inside of there.
This was very successful as a 3D printing operation. We've never printed anything this large before at Weta Workshop or this fine in nature, so very exciting to have the opportunity to do this.
It could be argued that this prop and all the props used in this sequence, we actually couldn't have built them maybe 6 months ago. Even though we've built wonderful things over the years, it required technology and chemistry to be at a place right now, right today, that allowed us to build this.
Then did a full body cast of Scarlet, which we also built in various materials.
It is very much like a shooting a miniature. It's a very focused, myopic, detailed shoot. The rigs ultimately become more complex than the actual thing that we've built.
We were planning to be all CG, and the mannequin was so incredible that it's going to be practical. CG will be the environment.
Major's character is quite new to this shell that she's in. She's only been in it for about a year, and so she's still putting together the pieces of how she got here and where she came from.
We were trying to give the audience a visceral sense about the slightly overwhelming experience for her in that moment.
We made you a new body, a synthetic shell. But your mind, your soul, your ghost, it's still in there.
Okay, camera left.
For me, having once had a significant animatronics division within Weta Workshop, and over the years seeing it slowly erode down to just 1 or 2 people trying to keep this great art alive, to have this movie come along and have the opportunity to invest this level of focus into complex animatronics has been a really, really special thing. And for me, it will be the single best memory that I'll take out of this journey.
It's exciting for me to kind of make a version of that that echoed the original, told a story, and felt like it was actually happening.